Chapter 27 takes us to Sordos. And this is happening at the same time Robert Jordan was thinking all that. Yes, so this is that's why we go back a little in time, because when he is thinking about love and killing people and all that, at the same time, Sordo was fighting on a hilltop.
Yes.
Chapter 27. El Sordo was making his fight on a hilltop. He did not like this hill, and when he saw it, he thought it had the shape of a chancre. But he had had no choice except this hill, and he had picked it as far away as he could see it and galloped for it, the automatic rifle heavy on his back, the horse laboring, barrel heaving between his thighs, the sack of grenades swinging against one side, the sack of automatic rifle pans banging against the other, and Joaquin and Ignacio halting and firing to give him time to get the gun in place. So
they are the brothers, no?
Joaquin is the young one. You remember?
Yes.
The one who cried when he remembered his sister, no?
Yes.
And the Ignacio is the other one, yes. And well, this short description is important because they are coming back with the horses. They are spotted by the fascists, and they are persecuted by the fascists. So that's why the only place where he could run is this hilltop. But it is a place where he's easily seen by the planes, no? Because
it's not a good thing to go the top of the hill. But it's the only possibility.
The only possibility. And it is also important to see all the things he was carrying, the automatic rifle, the grenades, etc. And that he was on the horse, because what will happen next is that the horse gets killed. There had still been snow, then the snow that had ruined them, and when his horse was hit, so that he whizzed in a slow, jerking, climbing stagger up the last part of the crest, splattering the snow with a bright, pulsing jet. Sordo had hauled him along by the bridle, the reins over his shoulder as he climbed. So you see the effort. He was carrying the rifle, the grenades, everything, and he pulled. He pulled from the reins to pull the horse that was hit by a shot, no? He climbed as hard as he could with the bullets spatting on the rocks, with the two sacks heavy on his shoulders, and then, holding the horse by the mane, had shot him quickly, expertly and tenderly, just where he had needed him, so that the horse pitched head forward down to plug a gap between two rocks. So he killed the horse because the horse was suffering, no?
Yes.
And then he used the body of the horse to cover himself in a way, no? At the end of that paragraph, it says, once the last of the 5 men had reached the hilltop, the chill went out of his back, and he had saved the pants he had left until he would need them. Now, there were 2 more horses dead along the slope, and 3 more were dead here on the hilltop. He had only succeeded in stealing 3 horses last night, and 1 had bolted when they tried to mount him bareback in the corral at the camp when the first shooting had started. Of the 5 men who had reached the hilltop, 3 were wounded. Sordo was wounded in the calf of his legs and in 2 places in his left arm. He was very thirsty. His wounds had stiffened, and one of the wounds in his left arm was very painful. He also had a bad headache, and as he lay waiting for the planes to come, he thought of a joke in Spanish. It was, hay que tomar la muerte como si fuera aspirina. So the last thoughts of El Sordo show the type of man he was, because he used humor even at this point, no? He grinned somewhere inside the pain in his head and inside the nausea that came whenever he moved his arm and looked around at what there was left of his band. So there were only these men and he. The 5 men were spread out like the points of a 5-pointed star. They had dug with their knees and hands and made mounds in front of their heads and shoulders with the dirt and piles of stones. Because they had to cover themselves. They are on the top of the hill and they had to cover themselves. Look at Joaquin. Joaquin, who was 18 years old, you remember Joaquin, had a steel helmet that he dug with and he passed dirt in it. He had gotten his helmet at the blowing up of the train. It had a bullet hole through it and everyone had always joked at him for keeping it. But he had hammered the jagged edge of the bullet hole smooth and driven a wooden plug into it, and then cut the plug off and smoothed it even with the metal inside the helmet. So Joaquin repaired the helmet and was wearing it, no, to cover himself. Of course, they are wounded, and this produced also thirst, and the anxiety of the battle also made them thirsty. And so in the next paragraph, 3 lines from the beginning, it says, in the last lung aching, leg dead, mouth dry, bullet spatting, bullet cracking, bullet singing ran up the final slope of the hill after his horse was killed. The helmet had seemed to weigh a great amount and to ring his bursting forehead with an iron band, but he had kept it. Now he dug it with it, in a steady, almost machine-like desperation. He had not been hit. It serves for something, finally, Sordo said to him in his deep, throaty voice. You see his humor present even here, no?
Yes, all the time, yes.
And Joaquin is going to use a lot of phrases coming from the teachings of La Pasionaria. That's why I mentioned La Pasionaria last week. Resistir y fortificar es vencer, Joaquin said. You see, they are in italics because he is a phrase that was repeated to him, no? His mouth stiff with the dryness of fear which surpassed the normal thirst of battle. It was one of the slogans of the Communist Party, and it meant hold out and fortify and you will win. Sordo looked away, no? What did you say? Remember that Sordo was deaf, of course. That's why he was Sordo. And then Joaquin, 2 paragraphs later, repeated the slogan in his dried up voice without checking his digging for a moment. What was the last word? The man with his chin on the ground asked. Vencer, the boy said. Win. Mierda, the man said with his chin on the ground said. There is another that applies to here, Joaquin said, bringing them out as though they were talismans. Pasionaria says, it is better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Yes, a very famous phrase.
Yes, very.
Very famous, that is attributed to La Pasionaria. Perhaps she took it from somewhere else, but people always said that this was La Pasionaria. Mierda again. So the other man doesn't, approve of these phrases because he thought we are defeated, no? So forget about La Pasionaria. We are on our bellies, not our knees.
Not our knees.
Thou, communist, do you know your Pasionaria has a Sunday age in Russia since the start of the movement? This was something that was criticized about La Pasionaria because her son, she had many children, but they all died very, very sadly, except one boy who was in Russia. He was sent to prepare himself for the war, no, to receive training. But then he died as a soldier in the Bolshevist army. And they said that this was, final for her, that she couldn't get over this. So do you know that she has a son in Russia? And Kiva, it's a lie. The dynameter with the real name told me he was of thy party too. Why should he lie? It's a lie, Joaquin said. She would not do such a thing as keep a son hidden in Russia out of the war. So Joaquin defends La Pasionaria, no?
Yes.
I wish I were in Russia, another of Sordo's men said. Will not thy Pasionaria send me now from here to Russia, communist? If thou believest so much in thy Pasionaria, get her to get us off this hill. The fascists will do that, the man with his chin in the dirt said. Do not speak thus, Joaquin said to him. Wipe the pap of your mother's breasts off thy lips and give me a hatful of that dirt. No one of us will see the sun go down this night. Yes, so all these men, especially the oldest ones, knew that they are going to be killed. El Sordo was thinking, it is shaped like a chancre, or the breast of a young girl with no nipple, or the top cone of a volcano. You have never seen a volcano, he thought, nor will you ever see one. And this hill is like a chancre. Let the volcanoes alone. It's late now for the volcanoes. So you see, we also get El Sordo's conscience, yes, as we got before Roberts, no?
I'm sorry. Have you said what is chancre?
Es un chancre. In Spanish es un chancro,
Chancro.
Chancro. Chancro es like una ampolla, ¿no?
Sí.
Una herida.
Es una ampolla cuando está abierta así, ¿viste? Con el pus, digamos.
Sí, como una pústula, sí.
Exacto, una
sí,
pústula.
Los chancros, la gente que tenía sífilis tenía chancros.
Exacto.
Claro.
Sí. So the comparison is very negative, of course, but well, it applies to the situation, no? Because they are going to die there. Instead of pus, they get mud. So he looked very carefully around the withers of the dead horse, and there was a quick hammering of firing from behind the boulder well down the slope. And he heard the bullets from the submachine gun thud into the horse. So Sordo, although he was feeling very bad, he had a headache, etc., he was trying to identify the weapons that were near him. And he saw the bodies. There were 3 bodies on the slope because they escaped, but they also killed a lot of fascists. They were persecuted by the fascists, but a lot of fascists got killed because they were going up the hill, and Sordo and his men shot them. Yes, Vanessa, you were going to say something? We cannot hear you because you are muted.
That if they were up the hill, they could shoot them from above.
That's right. They could, yes. There were other bodies. And then at the end of that paragraph, it says, there was no dead ground by which attackers could approach the summit. And Sordo knew that as long as his ammunition and grenades held out, and he had as many as 4 men, they could not get him out of there unless they brought up a trench mortar. He did not know whether they had sent to La Granja for a trench mortar. Perhaps they had not, because surely soon the planes would come. It had been 4 hours since the observation plane had flown over them. So he was, analyzing the situation. He knew that they could not get them out of there because if they approached, they were going to shoot them. But he knew that if they had a trench mortar, they could, or if the planes came. So it was a question of time. So then he thinks again, This hill is truly like a chancre, Sordo thought, and we are the very pass of it. But we killed many when they made that stupidness. How could they think that they would take us thus? They have such modern armament that they lose all their sense with overconfidence. He had killed the young officer who had led the assault with a grenade that had gone bouncing and rolling down the slope as they came up it running, bent half over. So you see, Sordo says, how is it that they didn't realize that they were not going to survive? No, so he said that these fascists are so stupid. And in the next paragraph, he reinforces that idea. They are brave but stupid people. Yes. And 2 lines or 3 lines later, the mortar was the normal thing, and he knew that they would die as soon as the mortar came up. But when he thought of the planes coming up, he felt as naked on that hilltop as though all of his clothing and even his skin had been removed. There is no nakeder thing than I feel, he thought. A flayed rabbit is as well covered as a bear in comparison. But why should they bring planes? They could get us out of here with a trench mortar easily. They are proud of their planes, though, and they will probably bring them. Just as they were so proud of their automatic weapons that they made that stupidness. But undoubtedly, they must have sent for a mortar too. So you see how Sordo is analyzing all the time the situation. And he's right, yes, because the others, the fascists, don't have the mortar. So they had to wait for the planes. Later, they start talking with the other men. And one says, who is a whore of horses, Pilar? That whore knows we are dying here. No, because they are waiting for Pilar's men. She could do no good, Sordo said. The man had spoken on the side of his good ear, and he had heard him without turning his head. What could she do? Take these slats from the rear. Que va? They are spread around the hillside. How would she come on them? There are 150 of them, maybe more now. But if we hold out until dark, Joaquin said, and if Christmas comes on Easter, the man with his chin on the ground said, yes. So Joaquin is the only one who had hope. Yes.
Oh.
Probably because he's so young, no?
Yes.
And if thy aunt had cojones, she would be thy uncle, another said to him. Send for thy pasionaria, she alone can help us. I do not believe that about the son, Joaquin said. Or if he is there, he's training to be an aviator or something of that sort. No, so Joaquin keeps his ideals or his, this is a way of having certain hope. He's hidden there for
yes,
he's very young.
It's a miracle. It would be a miracle. La Pasionaria is like a saint.
Yes,
no?
Of course. He's studying dialectics. The Pasionaria has been there, so have Lister and Modesto and others. The one with the rare name told me. You remember we talked about Lister and Modesto, yes, the 2 Spanish generals who were instructed in Russia, and then they came back to fight. And they go on talking. Another man says that they should aid us now, yes, and then they start, of course, as good Spanish people do, they start using bad words. Me cago en tal, yes. So, later on, a man says, Sordo, when thinkest thou the planes will come? Anytime, they should have come before. Do you think these sons of the great whore will attack again? Only if the planes do not come. God knows they've enough planes with what we saw yesterday. Too many, Sordo said. His head hurt very much, and his arm was stiffening, so that the pain of moving it was almost unbearable. He looked up at the bright, high, blue, early summer sky as he raised the leather wine bottle with his good arm. He was 52 years old, and he was sure this was the last time he would see that sky. Yes, so El Sordo was, knew. He was not at all afraid of dying, but he was angry at being trapped on this hill, which was only usable as a place to die. If he could have gotten clear, he thought, he could have made them come up the long valley, or if he could have broken loose across the road, it would have been all right. But this chunker of a hill, we must use it as well as we can, and we have used it very well so far. In the next paragraph, at the end of the next paragraph, whether one has fear of it, of death, or not, one's death is difficult to accept. Sordo has accepted it, but there was no sweetness in its acceptance, even at 52, with 3 wounds and him surrounded on a hill. So this acceptance is not sweet. He's angry. He joked about it to himself, but he looked at the sky and at the far mountains, and he swallowed the wine, and he did not want it. If one must die, he thought, and clearly one must, I can die, but I hate it. So his refusal to die. Dying was nothing, and he had no picture of it nor fear of it in his mind. But living was a field of grain blowing in the wind on the side of a hill. Living was a hawk in the sky. Living was an earthen jar of water in the dust of the threshing with the grain flayed out and the chaff blowing. Living was a horse between your legs and a carbine under one leg and a hill and a valley and a stream with trees along it and the far side of the valley and the hills beyond. So very poetically,
yes, very poetical.
Sordo knew that all these beautiful things, yes, the sky and the valley, yes, etc., all these beautiful things was living. Sordo passed the wine bottle back and nodded his head in thanks. He leaned forward and patted the dead horse on the shoulder where the muzzle of the automatic rifle had burned the hide. He could still smell the burnt hair. He thought how he had held the horse there, trembling, with the fire around them, whispering and cracking, over and around them like a curtain, and had carefully shot him just at the intersection of the cross lines between the 2 eyes and the ears. Then, as the horse pitched down, he had dropped down behind his warm, wet back to get the gun to going as they came up the hill. Eras mucho caballo, he said. So El Sordo and his men are there only waiting because they cannot do anything else, yes? At the end of the next paragraph, it says, his wounds had stiffened badly and he had much pain and he felt too tired to move. Well, they are talking, yes, a little more. This, as you can see, it creates more tension, yes, because El Sordo cannot hear well. They talk about the soldiers because they know that the soldiers are there. So they are there, the soldiers are there, nobody is moving, nobody is doing anything, yes. They started insulting the other soldiers, the way Spanish people do, yes. And then a paragraph that says, Sordo looked around. Found it?
No, yo estoy totalmente perdida.
Sorry, Claudia.
No, wait.
Let's see. This is, we started chapter 27. This is 5 pages. 5 pages after the beginning. Yes.
325. They have a different, yes.
Yes, no, she has there is a dialogue, a long dialogue. I don't know if
Sordo looked around, you said?
Sordo looked around.
277, Malena, at the bottom, practically.
Claudia, there are the word bandidos appears.
Thank you, Gabby.
Found it?
Yes, I found it.
No,
Yes.
I'm talking to Claudia.
Mm.
Bandidos appears in ¿cómo es?
Italics.
Italics. Está en bastardilla. Bandidos, bandidos. I want Claudia to find the page.
Well, don't worry. Continue. No encuentro. Bandido, bandido, no encuentro.
Bandidos, bandidos. After that, te digo bandidos porque está en
Sí,
Bastardilla, sí.
Bastardilla.
en bastardilla y es
The
más
first
fácil.
part of the paragraph is Sordo was thinking.
Sordo was what?
Thinking.
No, el sordo looked around.
Sordo looked around. Sordo looked around. They signaled to him that there was no movement on the other slopes. El Sordo grinned happily and shook his head. This is 10 times better than the aspirin, he thought. And he waited, as happy as only a hunter can be happy. So El Sordo is planning to kill the few soldiers that are left on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's keeping his ammunition.
Before dying.
Before dying, he's going to kill more. So he's waiting. Below on the slope, the man who had run from the pile of stones to the shelter of the boulder was speaking to the sniper. Do you believe it? I don't know, the sniper said. It would be logical, the man who was the officer in command said. They are surrounded. They have nothing to expect but to die. So they can hear that the soldiers are talking about them. Yes, they don't know because they are not moving. So the soldiers didn't know if they are dead. What do you think? The officer asked. Nothing. Have you seen any movement since the shots? None at all. The officer looked at his wristwatch. It was 10 minutes to 3 o'clock. The plane should have come an hour ago, he said. Just then, another officer flopped in behind the boulder. The sniper moved over to make room for him. Thou, Paco, the first officer said, how does it seem to thee? The second officer was breathing heavily from his sprint up and across the hillside from the automatic rifle position. For me, it is a trick. No, so one of the fascists thinks that what the others are doing is a trick.
Yes.
But if it is not, what a ridicule we make waiting here and laying siege to dead men. No, so this is the doubt. We are waiting here, and if they are dead, we are, yes, this is ridiculous. We have done something worse than ridiculous already, the second officer said. Look at that slope. Why? Because they followed them up the hill, and a lot of them are dead. So what they have done was ridiculous. What about the mortars? Asked the second officer. They should be here in an hour, if not before. Then wait for them. There has been enough stupidity already. Bandidos, the first officer shouted suddenly. Red swine, cowards. So they are shouting to provoke the Sordo and his men. But of course, the others are not going to come out.
Of course.
The second officer looked at the sniper and shook his head. The sniper looked away, but his lips tightened. The first officer stood there, his head all clear of the rock and with his hand on the pistol butt. He cursed and vilified the hilltop. Nothing happened. Then he stepped clear of the boulder and stood there looking up the hill. Fire, cowards, if you are alive. Fire on one who has no fear of any red that ever came out of the belly of the great whore. This last was quite a long sentence to shout, and the officer's face was red and congested as he finished.
Yes.
The second officer, who was a thin, sunburned man with quiet eyes, a thin, long-lipped mouth and a stubble of beard over his hollow cheeks, shook his head again. it was this officer who was shouting who had ordered the first assault. So this officer, the one who was shouting, not standing there provoking Sordo, was the one who ordered them to go up the hill. And he was responsible for all these people who died. So he continued shouting at El Sordo and his men. The young lieutenant who was dead up the slope had been the best friend of this other lieutenant who was named Paco Berrendo and who was listening to the shouting of the captain, who was obviously in a state of exaltation. Those are the swine who shot my sister and my mother, the captain said. He had a red face and a blonde, British-looking mustache, and there was something wrong about his eyes. They were a light blue and the lashes were light too. As you look at them, they seem to focus slowly. Then Reds, he shouted, cowards, and commenced cursing again. He stood absolutely clear now. No, o sea, estaba completamente a la vista. And sighting carefully, fired his pistol at the only target that the hilltop presented, the dead horse that had belonged to Sordo. The bullet threw up a puff of dirt 15 yards below the horse. The captain fired again. The bullet hit a rock and sank off. The captain stood there looking at the hilltop. The Lieutenant Berrendo was looking at the body of the other lieutenant just below the summit. The sniper was looking at the ground under his eyes. Then he looked up at the captain. There is no one alive up there, the captain said. Thou, said to the sniper, go up there and see. Que vivo, no manda el otro. The sniper looked up.
Always, the soldiers.
He said nothing. Don't you hear me? The captain shouted at him. Yes, my captain, the sniper said, not looking at him. Then get up and go. Do you hear me? Yes, my captain. Why don't you go then? I don't want to, my captain. You don't want to? The captain pushed the pistol against the small of the man's back. You don't want to? I am afraid, my captain. Lieutenant Berrendo, watching the captain's face and his odd eyes, thought he was going to shoot the man then. Captain Mora, he said. Lieutenant Berrendo, it is possible the soldier is right. That he is right to say he's afraid. That he's right to say he does not want to obey an order. No, that he's right that it is a trick. They are all dead, the captain said. Don't you hear me say they are all dead? You mean our comrades on the slope? Berrendo asked him. I agree with you. Paco, the captain said, don't be a fool. Do you think you are the only one who cared for Julian? Julian is the lieutenant who is dead. I tell you the Reds are dead. Look. He stood up, then put both hands on top of the boulder and pulled himself up, kneeing up awkwardly, then getting on his feet. Shoot, he shouted. Shoot me. Kill me. On the hilltop, El Sordo lay behind the dead horse and grinned. What a people, he thought. He laughed, trying to hold it in because the shaking hurt his arm. Reds, came the shout from below. Red Canil, shoot me, kill me. Sordo, his
They provoked them.
Yes, yes. Sordo, his chest shaking, barely peeped past the horse's crupper and saw the captain on top of the boulder waving his arms. Another officer stood by the boulder. The sniper was standing at the other side. Sordo kept his eye where it was and shook his head happily. Shoot me, he said softly to himself. Kill me. Then his shoulders shook again. The laughing hurt his arm, and each time he laughed, his head felt as though it would burst. But the laughter shook him again like a spasm. Captain Mora got down from the boulder. Now, do you believe me, Paco? No. No. Cojones, the captain said. Here there is nothing but idiots and cowards. The captain standing, I skipped one paragraph. The captain standing in the open beside the boulder commenced to shout filth at the hilltop. There is no language so filthy as Spanish. Again, the same comment on the part of Hemingway. No, this is not the first time he says this. There are words for all the vile words in English, and there are other words and expressions that are used in countries where blasphemy keeps pace with the austerity of religion. Lieutenant Berrendo was a very devout Catholic. So was the sniper. They were Carlists from Navarra, and while both of them cursed and blasphemed when they were angry, they regarded it as a sin which they regularly confessed. So you see, the other captain is using blasphemies all the time, and the others don't like this. So at the end of the next paragraph, talking thus will not bring luck, the sniper's thought. Speaking thus of the Virgin is bad luck. These ones speak worse than the Reds. So they even criticize this captain, no? So later on, they say, Paco, you and I will go up there, not me. What? The captain had his pistol out again. And Berrendo is the only one who has certain, idea, no? I hate these pistol brandishers, estos que mueven la pistola, no? I will go if you order me to, but under protest, Lieutenant Berrendo told the captain. Then I will go alone. The smell of cowardice is too strong here. Holding his pistol in his right hand, he strode steadily up the slope. Berrendo and the sniper watched him. He was making no attempt to take any cover, and he was looking straight ahead of him at the rocks, the dead horse, and the fresh dug dirt of the hilltop. El sordo.
Sorry, we have, Ines,
yes.
We have 1 minute.
1 minute.
We reconnected.
We
at what time?
reconnect at 5:15, and I will.
5:15.
I will send you a new link.
Okay, thank you.
El sordo lay behind the horse at the corner of the rock, watching the captain come striding up the hill. Only one, he thought. We get only one. But from his manner of speaking, he is Casa Mayor. Claro, es el capitán. Look at him walking. Look what an animal. Look at him stride forward. This one is for me. This one I take with me on the trip. This one coming now makes the same voyage as I do. Come on, comrade voyager, come striding, come right along, come along to meet it. Come on, keep on walking, don't slow up. Come right along, come as thou art coming. Don't stop and look at those, that's right, don't even look down. Keep on coming with your eyes forward. Look, he has a mustache. What do you think of that? He runs to a mustache, the comrade voyager. He is a captain. Look at his sleeves. I said he was Casa Mayor. He has the face of an Inglés. Look, with a red face and blonde hair and blue eyes, with no cap on, and his mustache is yellow, with blue eyes, with